I knew something was off the second I pulled into my driveway and saw the giant red letters sprayed across my garage door. Thief. I slammed my truck door shut, heart pounding. I stared in disbelief at the vandalism cheap red spray paint dripping down the white metal like blood. My stomach twisted. That's when I saw her, standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, smug as hell, wearing her signature oversized sunglasses and floral blouse. Marilyn Dorsey. Middle-aged, bleach blonde, and the self-appointed dictator of the Maple Hollow HOA. She was everything you'd expect from a Karen who'd clawed her way into HOA leadership, entitled, nosy, and constantly looking for someone to punish. Really, Marilyn? I barked, storming toward her. What the hell is this? You know exactly what you did, Isaac, she said, voice syrupy with fake politeness. People saw you take that package from the Thompsons' porch yesterday. I warned you, this neighborhood doesn't tolerate thieves. I blinked. That was my package. Delivered to the wrong house. I knocked, told them, and they said to go ahead and take it. You seriously think I'm stealing now? She didn't flinch. We have rules, Isaac. You've been pushing boundaries for months. Uncut hedges, leaving your trash bin out past collection, and now this. Maybe this will make you think twice. I felt my blood boil. I wasn't the only one sick of her tyranny, but this was criminal. I pulled out my phone and called my cousin Ruben. He's LAPD, but right now he was in town for a wedding and staying at my place. Ruben, I said, pacing. Get out here. Now, Marilyn just vandalized my property. What? Be there in two, Marilyn scoffed. Oh, please, you think calling the cops is going to scare me? I am the HOA. We enforce the rules. I turned to her. You're not above the law. Before she could answer, Ruben strode down my driveway in jeans and a plain t-shirt, badge clipped to his belt. His presence alone made Marilyn step back. You, Ruben said, pointing at her. Did you spray paint this garage? She hesitated. I was enforcing the HOA code. He's been stealing packages. Got proof? Someone told me. Ruben cut her off. So no eyewitness, no footage, no complaint filed, but you did vandalize the garage. I had every right. No, he said, pulling out his phone to start recording. You committed property damage and publicly defamed my cousin. That's criminal mischief and libel, and you admitted it. On camera. Her face went pale. You have no idea who you're messing with, she hissed. Oh, I think we do, I said. And I'm done letting you bully this street. Ruben kept his phone raised, calmly panning it from the vandalized garage to Marilyn, whose mouth twitched like she wanted to say something clever, but couldn't find a way to shut the door she'd just kicked open. She tried again anyway. This is a private matter, neighborhood business. You can't just interfere in HOA enforcement. Ruben didn't even blink. This isn't enforcement, this is defacement. Big difference. And you're about to find out just how big. Marilyn's eyes darted to the neighbors now gathering on the sidewalk. A few had phones out. Ruben took a slow step toward her. I'm going to need your full name and date of birth. I'm not giving you anything without my attorney, she snapped. You're not under arrest, yet. But if you want this to stay a misdemeanor and not escalate into a very public legal disaster, I suggest you cooperate. She stood frozen, jaw clenched, but her eyes flicked to the crowd again, and I could see it her instinct to protect her image battling the realization that she was spiraling. She finally muttered her information, and Ruben typed it into his phone. Just then, a silver SUV pulled into the Thompsons' driveway across the street. Mr. Thompson stepped out with his usual quiet shuffle, then paused when he saw the writing on my garage. Good Lord, he said. Who did that? Marilyn turned sharply. We have reason to believe, he cut her off, waving dismissively. Isaac didn't steal anything. He rang our bell, told us the package was his, and I told him to take it. You think a thief knocks first? Ruben looked at Marilyn without saying a word. She glanced down at her shoes. Mr. Thompson stepped closer. My wife even checked the label. It had his name. You want us to testify to that? Ruben nodded slowly. Yes, I'll be taking statements. Marilyn's breath caught. You can't be serious. I am. You vandalized private property. That's punishable by law, and if you think hiding behind HOA bylaws is going to save you, think again. She turned to me, voice rising. You don't know what this means. If I get charged, you should have thought of that before picking up the spray paint, I said. She stepped back like she was going to walk away, but Ruben blocked her path. I'm going to have to photograph the garage, then we'll be documenting everything you said and did here today. If you leave before I'm done, that'll be obstruction. She hesitated, then shifted her stance, arms tight against her sides. Her silence was the first smart move she'd made all day. Ruben pulled out his phone again. Isaac, do you have any cameras? I nodded toward the corner of the garage. Motion activated. It's all saved to cloud storage. Perfect. Send me the footage and back it up somewhere she can't get to. Marilyn's head snapped up. Why would I tamper with anything? You already crossed one line. I'm not giving you the benefit of the doubt on anything else. Ruben pulled out a pen and notepad from his truck and began jotting down notes. I walked back up the driveway to check the camera feed. The footage was clear. Marilyn in broad daylight, paint can in hand, doing her best impression of a vigilante with zero self-awareness. When I returned, Ruben was speaking with Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, who had joined him on the sidewalk. Mrs. Thompson looked shaken. I had no idea she was capable of something like this, she said. We've lived here 15 years. This is not normal. It's been getting worse, Mr. Thompson added, ever since she got made HOA president last fall. She fined the Hendersons for painting their door without board approval. It was the same color. Then she tried to ban overnight street parking. And now this. Ruben nodded. Would you be willing to write a statement about prior incidents? Anything that shows a pattern of harassment or abuse of authority is helpful. We'll do it, Mrs. Thompson said quickly. Marilyn turned toward them, voice shaking. You're going to betray me like that? After everything I've done for this neighborhood? You mean the illegal fines? The threats, Mrs. Thompson snapped. You bullied that single mom down the block over wind chimes. Ruben tapped his notepad. That's useful. Keep going. Another neighbor joined James, who ran the local hardware store. He pointed to the garage, shaking his head. Didn't think she'd go this far, he said. But I'm not surprised. She's been pushing people around for months, tried to shut down my backyard barbecue because it violated community noise thresholds. It was my son's birthday. Ruben looked at me. This is becoming something bigger than vandalism. If she's been abusing her position to punish residents arbitrarily, that's civil rights territory. Misuse of authority under the color of law. I raised an eyebrow. You thinking class action? Could be. Depends how deep it goes. But this isn't just about your garage anymore. He turned back to Marilyn. Here's what's going to happen. I'm forwarding this case to the city attorney. They're going to review it for criminal charges. And I'm also flagging this for the Department of Consumer Affairs, the board that oversees HOA conduct in this state. You can't do that, she said, panic creeping into her voice. I already did. She took a step toward Ruben. You're not even in this neighborhood. You have no jurisdiction here. He stared straight at her. I have jurisdiction over criminal acts committed anywhere in this state, and you just gave me everything I need. Her hands trembled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. That's the problem, I said. You never think about the damage you do. You just assume no one will push back. A city cruiser rolled up moments later. Ruben had called it in while I was checking the footage. Officer Delgado stepped out, took one look at the garage, and let out a low whistle. Someone's got some explaining to do, he said. Ruben handed him the notepad. Got statements, ID, and video. She's the one who did it. Delgado glanced at Marilyn. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. You're not under arrest at this time, but we need to take your statement downtown. Marilyn looked like she might faint, but she followed him to the car. As she got in, she turned one last time. This neighborhood will regret turning on me. Ruben crossed his arms. They already do. Once she was gone, the crowd slowly dispersed. Mr. Thompson clapped me on the shoulder. You did the right thing, Isaac. Finally, someone stood up to her. She picked the wrong driveway, I said. Ruben nodded. Get some rest. I'll follow up with the city attorney first thing in the morning, and you might want to talk to your neighbors about replacing the HOA board. Looks like you've got a case. I looked around at the empty street, paint still drying on my garage door. For the first time since I moved in, I didn't feel like I was alone in this fight, and I had a feeling things were just getting started. The next morning, I was standing in front of my garage with a brush and a can of industrial-strength primer when Ruben came out holding a folder thick enough to choke a printer. He looked like he hadn't gotten a minute of sleep, but his eyes were lit up with that methodical intensity I'd only seen when he was working a serious case. "I went digging last night," he said, handing me the folder. "This doesn't stop with your garage." I set the brush down and opened it. Inside were printed emails, financial records, scanned letters, and screenshots, most of them involving the Maple Hollow HOA's board funds. Several documents had Marilyn's signature. Most were invoices to vendors I'd never heard of. What exactly are we looking at? Fraud. Embezzlement. Fake maintenance invoices for landscaping jobs that never happened. Reimbursements to contractors who don't exist. It's been going on for over a year, and she's been funneling money through at least 2 fake companies. I looked up from the folder. "You're saying she's been stealing from the HOA?" "No. I'm saying she's been laundering community dues into her own pocket, probably thinking no one would ever audit her because she kept the streets looking neat." "Where'd you get this?" A neighbor named Lacey. She used to be the board's treasurer before Marilyn forced her out. Apparently, Lacey kept copies of everything before she left. She's been sitting on it, scared to go public. Lacey from the blue house with the porch swing, Reuben nodded. "That's her." She reached out after hearing what happened yesterday. Said she's been waiting for someone to stand up to Marilyn. "Looks like you kicked open the right door." Before I could respond, a sedan rolled up and parked across the street. A woman stepped out, early 40s, wearing a gray blazer and carrying a leather briefcase. She walked with purpose, aiming straight for us. "Isaac," she asked. "That's me." She extended a hand. "Dana Feller, Assistant City Attorney. Detective Sanger forwarded your case." "I'd like to ask a few questions." Reuben gestured toward the porch. "We've got fresh coffee inside." We sat in the kitchen while Dana flipped through the folder. Her expression tightened with each page. When she got to the vendor invoices, she tapped one with her pen. "This one's for over $6,000 for sidewalk resurfacing last month. That work was never done, not even a crack filled," Reuben said. "I walked the street myself this morning." Dana nodded slowly. "We've had complaints about HOA misconduct across the city, but this is the first time we've had usable evidence of financial fraud. If this holds up, we'll be filing felony charges." I leaned forward. "What happens to the rest of the board?" "That depends. If they were complicit, they go with her. If they were negligent, we'll push for removal and appoint a temporary oversight committee until a new election can be held." Reuben stood and grabbed another folder from the counter. "You'll want this too. It's a timeline Lacey helped me put together. Lists every suspicious transaction, date, and board vote related to it, cross-referenced against bank statements." Dana flipped through it, eyebrows rising. "You two have done more in 12 hours than some of our forensic teams do in a week. Comes with growing up around people like Marilyn," I said. "You learn to document everything." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from James, the hardware store owner. He just hung a printout on the community bulletin board in the park, an open invitation for all residents to meet that evening to discuss a formal vote of no confidence against the HOA board. It was signed by 16 homeowners already. I showed Dana the message. "Is this going to complicate anything?" "No," she said, standing. "It's exactly what needs to happen. The more residents who speak out, the stronger our case will be in court. Just make sure the meeting stays civil." Reuben laughed. "With Marilyn out of commission, I don't think anyone's going to throw a lawn chair." Dana paused at the door. "Keep gathering statements, and if anyone on the board tries to interfere, call me directly. We're treating this as a criminal investigation now." By the time she left, word had already spread. A steady stream of neighbors dropped by throughout the day, each one bringing stories, records, or both. An older couple brought photos of a cracked sidewalk Marilyn claimed had been repaired. A single dad handed over a letter demanding a $400 fine for peeling mailbox paint, even though his mailbox was made of stainless steel. A teen from down the block provided screenshots of a group chat where Marilyn bragged about disciplining residents to keep the property values obedient. The pile of evidence grew. So did the outrage. That evening, just before sunset, the park was packed. Lawn chairs lined the grass. People stood in small groups, some holding folders, others holding nothing but years of frustration. James brought a folding table and set up a sign and sheet. Reuben stood at the edge with a notepad, taking names of people willing to give formal statements. I stepped up to the makeshift podium, a milk crate and a megaphone, and raised a hand. Thanks for coming out. I know it's short notice, but after yesterday, I think we all realized something's been broken in this neighborhood for a long time, and it's time we fixed it. A few people clapped. Others nodded silently. I pointed toward the folder Reuben held. We've uncovered evidence that our HOA president has been misusing funds, fabricating fines, and threatening residents. This isn't just bad leadership, this is criminal, and the city is now involved. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tonight, we're starting the process to remove the current board. We have enough signatures to call an emergency vote, and we'll be forming a temporary committee to oversee the transition. If you've ever felt punished for no reason, if you've ever received a fine that didn't make sense, now's the time to speak. A woman in a red windbreaker stepped forward. She fined me $600 for a non-regulation fence after approving the same design for her cousin 2 streets down. A man holding a baby added, "She made me tear up my garden over unauthorized plants. They were tomatoes." The stories poured out. By the end of the night, we had over 40 formal statements, a signed petition for board removal, and a volunteer team of residents ready to serve as interim leadership. The next morning, Reuben and I delivered the petition and evidence to the city attorney's office. Dana met us in the lobby, glanced through the newest stack of reports, then leaned in close. "Marilyn posted bail late last night, but don't worry, she won't get far. We're filing charges today, 5 counts of fraud, 2 of criminal mischief, and 1 for falsifying public records." Reuben asked what the maximum sentence might be if convicted on all counts, Dana said. "She's looking at over 15 years. As we drove back through Maple Hollow, I noticed something I hadn't seen in months. Kids playing on the sidewalks, neighbors chatting without glancing over their shoulders, and front yards decorated with wind chimes, garden gnomes, and even a few pink flamingos. Freedom in plastic form. When we pulled into my driveway, Reuben clapped me on the back. "You know," he said, "when I came out here, I thought I was just going to a wedding. Didn't expect to help take down a suburban tyrant." I looked at the garage. The paint was gone, replaced with a fresh coat, and a new security camera pointed straight at the curb. "You know what they say," I said. "Every HOA has its day, but some get theirs in court." By the following week, a quiet tension hung over Maple Hollow like a thundercloud that hadn't quite burst. Marilyn's house sat dark, blinds drawn, mailbox stuffed. No one had seen her since her arrest and release. A few whispered she'd fled to her sister's in Nevada. Others said she was holed up inside, watching the street from her upstairs window like a dethroned monarch clinging to scraps of power. But the neighborhood wasn't waiting around. On Tuesday evening, the community center's meeting hall was packed. Folding chairs lined every wall. A whiteboard listed the evening's agenda under the banner. Special session HOA reconstruction vote. Every seat was filled, and a few people stood in the back, leaning against the corners with crossed arms and folded petitions. I sat near the front beside Reuben and Lacey, who had agreed to serve as interim treasurer until a new board could be properly elected. Dana arrived just before the meeting started, wearing a navy suit that made her look more like a judge than a city attorney. She nodded at Reuben, then addressed the room. "We've reviewed the evidence provided by your community," she said. "As of this morning, the city has filed formal charges in Superior Court against Marilyn Dorsey. The charges include financial fraud, falsification of HOA records, and deliberate misuse of authority under the Davis-Sterling Act." A murmur rippled through the room. Dana raised a hand. "In addition, we're investigating potential co-conspirators. If any current or former board members were aware of or benefited from Marilyn's actions, they will also be held accountable. For now, the court has approved the formation of a temporary council to oversee operations until a formal election is held in 60 days. James, now acting chair of the interim council, stepped forward and took the mic. "We're not just rebuilding the board," he said. "We're rewriting the bylaws. No more closed-door decisions. No more arbitrary fines. Every policy will be subject to community vote. Dana nodded. Going forward, the city will monitor Maple Hollow for compliance. You're not alone in this process. But it's up to you to ensure transparency and fairness remain long after this case is closed. After Dana spoke, the floor opened for nominations. People who had once been too afraid to speak now stepped up confidently. A retired math teacher volunteered to manage the books. A nurse offered to serve as community liaison. A local contractor pledged to oversee property rules with what he called common sense and a tape measure. When the votes were counted, the new interim board was approved unanimously. Someone rang a bell in the back and laughter broke out, the kind of laughter that comes when a long-held weight finally lifts. As people filed out, Ruben and I hung back. Dana approached us near the back row. "You guys really shook the tree," she said. "Turns out this isn't the only HOA with dirty laundry. Your recordings and documentation are being used to draft a new citywide oversight policy." I leaned against the wall. "Funny, I just wanted my garage door clean." Dana gave a dry chuckle. "Well, you got that." "And a neighborhood revolution." Ruben looked toward the door. "Any update on where she is?" "She's still in the city," Dana said. "Her lawyer's trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the court isn't budging. The financial trail made it airtight. The judge denied her request to delay proceedings." "Trial starts in 3 weeks. You think she'll face time?" I asked. "If the jury sees what we've got," she said, "she'll be looking at several years minimum, especially with the added charges." Ruben tapped his phone. "I've still got the original footage backed up in 3 places. Chain of custody's clean. I'll testify if needed." Dana nodded. "I'll let you know." As she left, Lacey joined us, holding a folder stuffed with receipts and handwritten notes. "There's something else," she said, lowering her voice. "I didn't include it in the main file yet. I wanted to verify it first." I opened the folder. Inside were copies of purchase orders for landscaping supplies, topsoil, gravel, tree saplings, all billed to Maple Hollow's HOA account, all signed by Marilyn. The problem was the delivery locations were nowhere near our neighborhood. One was a private residence in Palm Springs. "She used HOA funds to renovate a vacation property," Lacey whispered. "I called the supplier pretending to be a contractor. They confirmed the delivery address and even sent me these." She handed over 3 printed photos of a lush front yard dotted with fresh pavers and a koi pond. It looked like a resort. I stared at the images. "You sent these to Dana." "Just got them this afternoon." "I'm giving her the originals tomorrow." Ruben let out a low whistle. "This bumps it from bad to brazen. That's federal wire fraud if she used HOA dues to pay vendors across state lines." Lacey nodded. I checked. One of the invoices was paid using an HOA debit card while she was in Las Vegas. Ruben shook his head. "She's going to be lucky if she sees daylight before retirement age." We left the community center around 9. The air was cool, and the sidewalks sparkled faintly from an earlier rain. Porch lights glowed warm in windows, and the street was quiet not with fear, but peace. As we passed the Hendersons' house, a group of kids played flashlight tag across 3 yards. No one yelled at them. No one threatened fines. I glanced at Ruben. "You ever think about buying here?" I asked. He gave a sideways look. "Only if you promise not to run for president," I laughed. "After this, I'd rather take up beekeeping." The next morning, I found a letter taped to my front door. No envelope, just a single sheet of paper folded in half. It read, "You think you've won. But this neighborhood was mine." No signature. Just that single initial scratched in sharp, angry letters. I brought it inside, slid it into a plastic sleeve, and handed it to Ruben when he came by for coffee. "She's still watching," I said. He examined the paper, then took it out to dust for prints. "Let her watch," he said. "She's going to have a front row seat to her own trial." That same day, Dana confirmed the new charges: interstate misuse of association funds and federal mail fraud for falsified invoices sent through the U.S. Postal Service. The case was now in the hands of both the state and the Department of Justice. The trial moved quickly. With overwhelming evidence and nearly 50 resident testimonies, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts in less than 2 hours. Marilyn's sentence. 7 years state time for financial fraud, with an additional 3 years federal for wire and mail fraud. She was taken into custody immediately following sentencing. No house arrest, no appeals accepted. The courtroom was packed with neighbors. Not out of vindictiveness, but to witness the end of an era. Outside, reporters waited on the steps. Dana gave a brief statement about HOA accountability and thanked the Maple Hollow community for their courage. Lacey stood beside her, quiet but proud. Reuben and I lingered at the edge of the crowd. "You know," he said, "I've arrested people for a lot less than what she pulled, but I've never seen someone fall so far so fast." "She built her kingdom on fear," I said, watching the news vans drive off. Turns out fear makes a lousy foundation. By summer, the neighborhood was unrecognizable in the best ways, fences painted in cheerful colors, gardens blooming with whatever people felt like planting, no more anonymous warnings on doorsteps, no more threats hidden behind fake regulation. The new board held monthly meetings with open slots for anyone to speak. Kids sold lemonade on corners without being told it violated commerce rules. A retired jazz singer hosted Saturday night porch concerts. And absolutely no one had to ask for permission to hang a flag on their own property. One evening, I stood on my driveway, sipping iced tea, watching a kid ride by on a bike covered in glitter streamers. Reuben pulled up and leaned out his window. "You see this," he said, motioning down the street. "Freedom looks weird with flamingos and wind chimes." "Weird," I said, "but perfect," he chuckled. "You ever figure out what she meant in that note? Doesn't matter," I said. "She used to run the neighborhood. Now she's just a cautionary tale." Reuben gave a nod, then drove off toward the corner. I turned and looked at the garage door, the same one that once bore that hateful word. Now it was freshly painted, smooth and plain. No message, no accusation, just a door doing its job, and that was enough.